Hi everyone, welcome to the Warhammer Podcast. We're your hosts, Jack
and Dan.
Today we're going to be talking about a few different things, but one of the main ones is about how Warhammer has changed in 10th edition.
Yeah, and has it changed as much as they were hoping? So there's a major mechanic in this game which they'd build as being a huge change, but I don't think it's actually having that much impact.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to discuss that in detail, but if no one knows what that is battleshock.
Yes.
Another thing that we're going to be talking about today as well is an upcoming tournament that we're going to be attending next Sunday.
I think it's fair to say it must be one of the most unique tournaments in the country, and we'll explain why when we get into that, but we're both looking forward to it. Yeah,
we really are. And lastly, we also have a giveaway going on up until the 25th of September, so if anyone's watching the podcast before that point, stay tuned to see how you can enter in for a prize draw.
Yeah, and it's a £100 Games Workshop voucher at stake, so it's worth hanging around for.
So the first intro that we're going to be talking about today is battleshock. Dan, what is battleshock?
So battleshock was billed as a major change to the game, and it has the potential to be, but it's not quite there yet. How it works is it's a replacement for morale. So if you remember in 9th edition and perhaps all the editions before that, how leadership worked was it was based on your morale of your unit. What that meant was if your unit failed its morale, it was basically shit scared and was gonna leave the battlefield. In early editions, this meant like they would run until they hit the nearest table edge, and then that unit was destroyed, or it was destroyed if an enemy unit made contact with it while it was running away. And then in 9th, obviously, it had morphed into single models that if you rolled a 1 or a 2, if your unit was under half strength, they would flee. But it was about morale rather than combat effectiveness.
Yes.
In this edition, it's meant to be more about combat effectiveness. So battleshock, if your unit becomes battleshocked, you can't use stratagems on it.
Yes.
And its objective control value goes to 0, so it can't hold an objective.
Which is massive in 10th.
Yes.
Points is king.
Exactly. So points wise, battleshock should have a bigger impact than morale did. 9th.
We should hope so, man. And to be fair, I quite like the direction in which battleshock is actually going, because in the past, our undying legion of Necrons running away.
Yes.
I mean, where was that ever in the lore kind of thing that units would run away? And that's the same for basically the majority of armies, right? Like Custodians running away, Space Marines running away. I mean, I could see Orcs running away.
Yes, yeah, they were very good at it. Yeah,
exactly. Even Tyranids to some degree to save their biomass, but in terms of like our Undying Legion running away, it just didn't really make much sense.
So the battleshock makes a lot more sense for a lot more factions. Yeah. So the way it works is if your unit is under half strength, so if that's a unit of say 10 originally, that was its starting strength, and it goes down to 4 or fewer models, then it has to take a battleshock test in your command phase. Yeah. So you roll against your leadership. You get equal to or higher than your leadership, you pass your test. If you get lower, you fail. There are also some abilities from some units have abilities to force you to take a battleshock test, and Tyranids, of course, excuse me, Shadowing the Warp is their army rule, which
protect them from it, right?
Well, in one turn they can force every unit in your army to make a battleshock test.
Actually, is that still there with the new codex? Actually,
yes.
Oh, interesting.
So it is meant to have a major influence on point scoring, and GW in the run-up to and the launch of 10th were very vocal about saying that this is going to be a huge change to how the game is played. Yeah. The actual reality of that, I think, is that it isn't so far. It hasn't made that much difference.
No, not in my games at least anyways.
So I was trying to think of a game where it made any serious impact on my point scoring or the outcome of the game, and I can't think of any.
Well, like whenever I've kind of ever experienced it, I've had the reanimation to kind of kick in, and I've never really kind of noticed it be an issue when it comes to the battleshock side of things. I'm trying to think actually now. Does battleshock happen after or before reanimation?
It happens before reanimation. Yes, so you do. So Necrons would have to take it before, so we couldn't sneak around it by reanimating more models above half strength. But leadership is so right. So there's a few elements to this. Let's think about this. So one of them that I just touched on there is leadership. So if we're thinking about where is battleshock going to make an impact, it's designed to make an impact to units that are holding objectives, which is typically the mid-board objectives.
Yeah, pretty much.
So as Necron players, that's us running Lich Guard or Warrior Blobs onto those mid-board objectives to hold them for as long as possible.
Yes.
And those blobs will always, as Necrons, will always have leaders. And the way 10th is designed is most factions are the same. Most of those units, or a lot of armies, are going to have leaders in those units.
Yes.
And therefore you're testing on the leader's leadership rather than the units.
Makes sense, they're being led. Absolutely.
So if you think about it from a Necron perspective, we are looking at like, let's have a look. It's written down, bear with me. So Necron leaders have a leadership of 6 across the board. So if you need to roll a 6 or higher on 2d6, you have a 72% chance of doing that. So the chance of you failing
doesn't feel like 72% for me. I cannot.
But the chance of you failing is fairly low.
Yeah.
And even if somebody sniped the leaders out of that unit and you haven't been able to resurrect them or whatever, your Necron warriors are leadership of 7, so you're still passing on 58% chance of passing. So it's still
the odds are still there.
Yeah,
which is quite nice.
And this is one. This is one of the challenges. Is I think when we go back to what I was talking about before about leadership values on data sheet have always been about morale, and so they were set to reflect that this was the chance of your unit running away. So Necrons all had leadership 10 in 9th edition, for example, because the chances of them running away should have been virtually none.
Yeah.
So one of the things that GW hasn't addressed yet with battleshock is that the leadership values are still attuned to a unit not failing morale. Rather than occasionally failing battleshock, because the impact of failing morale was quite big.
It was,
but the impact of failing battleshock is meant to be like a temporary disturbance,
issue,
if you like. And then you can. It's not something that's going to change the entire game very often.
Yeah.
So, in my view, I think they've got leadership values slightly too high. If they dropped those leadership values so that you became more likely that you were going to fail a battleshock test, battleshock would become more of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the name of it's actually pretty good though as well, because Battle Shocked, it's like, look, they're still there, they still exist, they can still do stuff to a degree, but they're shaken, so they can't do these actions.
Yeah, it's like combat
stuff.
Effectiveness, isn't it?
Exactly.
So the way
Which
I
makes
think,
so much more sense in 10th as well.
It does, because they imported the whole morale thing came from Warhammer Fantasy Battle, so it was. And you think about it in that kind of lore setting, if you like, that it makes much more sense in those kind of rank and flank swords and shields types of games where units are clashing together.
Aye.
One unit is
endless grind, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's one unit is losing that combat and buckles and flees the battlefield.
Yes,
that's it fits in with those historic war games as well.
It's like it's a progressive kind of thing in a combat, opposed to being like, oh, you clash, oh, one's completely dead and runs away. But now it's more like the clash, one starts to lose, I guess, morale, and then they can't do stuff, and then after that, that's when they fall back.
Yes, and in a 40k is essentially a skirmish game, and in an armed skirmish game like this, a modern warfare, if you like, or future warfare. Battleshock feels better because it's like, imagine if the other units shot you and killed like half your unit, and the rest of you are like pinned down basically, so you can't use strats because you're scrabbling for cover or whatever. Or for Necrons, maybe like the shooting's been so intense, or so many have died that there's issues with the comms between the leadership and the troops, so they can't give them the orders to that kind of
perform the job, basically,
exactly.
sort of stuff.
So it fits better with the lore of 40k.
Yeah.
As a game mechanic, it's not quite working as intended, I don't think, yet, because it's just not.
It's not impactful enough.
Yeah, it's not, that's the word, impactful. Yeah.
Like, I'm not feeling it in any of my games. It's not the big decider that I think Games Workshop thought it was going to be when it comes to holding an objective, being like, oh, I mean, going back to when we went to down Manchester for the GT. We played 10th then, and the person was really heavily enforced, like, oh, look, this is going to cause you battle shock. You are going to lose that objective. Yeah. And even like, I mean, that game that we played was definitely set up to reflect battle shock.
Yes.
But now that we're actually playing it with the units that we choose, I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah,
just not feeling it.
It's not having the major impact as they expected yet. I think there are some changes afoot. Stu Black, as well as being very handsome, is a very clever man, and he is. They've already
a little fan base,
yes. They've already tweaked this slightly, and the major change was in this in the stratagem for Insane Bravery.
Yes.
So in 9th edition, you could use Insane Bravery to auto pass a unit, so you didn't lose any models to morale. Nobody ran away. In 10th, you were able to use it after you'd failed a battleshock test. So again, because of the percentages we were talking about before, the likelihood was you were going to pass most of those. If the worst happens and you roll Snake Eyes or whatever, and you fail one, you can then go, 1 CP. I'll Insane Bravery them so they don't fail.
And that was massive on like units like Orcs, for example. You have like a squad of like, I don't know, like 20 squad,
20 boys or something. Yeah,
even warriors. You lose half of them or whatever, and then you suffer a thingy. They're all going to run away. It's like, oh well, 1 CP is nothing. Let me keep that entire unit. Great.
And they've. You want to talk about how they've changed that stratagem?
Yeah, so we're going to touch on it later on, but the main thing about it is that you can now make the big change is that you can now only use it once per game.
I think it's once per unit per game, isn't it?
Is it what unit?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll put it on screen. So
yes, we'll double check.
Like little flashy lights. But yes, so
and also you can't use it after you've failed a battleshock test anymore, can you? You have to. You
can't use stratagems on your people anyways once you fail battleshock.
Yes.
So.
You have to use it beforehand.
Got to use it beforehand.
Yeah.
I think the main thing why it hasn't really impacted my games for is because with our reanimation that we've got as well, I typically, whenever my units go below half strength, I then typically use the stratagem to resurrect some of them. So I think that's, thinking back now, I think that's mainly why I never really see it in my game, because I'm such a good player. I do the role to get that unit back up to at least half, if not more, strength.
One of the tricks up the fair on sleeve, so to speak, for Necrons was that we had a stratagem that after a unit had finished making its attacks, whether that was melee or shooting, we could then activate our resurrection protocols or reanimation protocols, so we could immediately bring models back.
Immediately.
And that's basically what you're talking about. And equally, before the changes that have been made to this data slate, which we'll get into in a minute, but before those changes were made, you could use that stratagem for free through your Overlord as well.
Yeah.
So it was much easier for Necrons to avoid even having to take a battleshock test, never mind the impact of one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is there any other changes that you would make to Battleshock to make it like more impactful, as we say?
I think changes to leadership would be a start, but that's not going to happen overnight, because obviously leadership is embedded in data sheets.
Yeah, it's across the board, and they wouldn't want to be changing values like that anymore because of the indexes that we've talked about before. The Codex for Tyrants just came out. They don't want to be changing that. And Space Runes is probably being printed as we speak. Yeah. So
I mean, they usually have something like a 3-month, I think it is, or 6-month lag on codexes, so they're probably already, the Necron one's probably been printer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So rather than just leadership, is there a way that they can adjust it via battleshock? So, for example, if you've taken, say you're below half strength, first time you take a battleshock test, it's against your leadership. The second time it's against your leadership, but you -1 to the dice roll. So so that perhaps then battleshock has a more cumulative effect. So that the first time a unit gets pinned down or whatever, or has to take a battleshock test, it has less chance of failing. And the more tests it's made to take, the higher the chance of a failure is.
And then what it could also do at that part then is maybe even like make the effects worsen as time goes on.
Yes.
It could be like, the first time you fail it, your OC goes to 0.
Yeah.
Second time you fail it in a row, right, your ballistic skill now goes to -1.
Yes.
Or -2. And then the third time, your armor save then goes down.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that thing where it's like, again, very similar to what I mentioned before, in war, 2 armies clash.
Yeah.
Their morale starts, withering. And then they kind of just die, basically.
Yeah, and it would definitely make it more impactful in that respect. I think some other people have mooted online that also changing OC values might make a difference. But if you're, what I mean by that is that at the moment, battle line troops have got an OC of 2. So maybe if you want to see more battle line troops more battle line units being taken in 40k, maybe Battleshock only reduces their OC to 1.
Yeah,
so they've still got some effectiveness.
Yeah, so obviously the elites stay as 1 or whatever they are, and then obviously the battle line mainly just go to that would be a good shout, because I don't think since 10 I've not brought any warriors in my list. I've not brought any battle line units.
The Necron community is it's not fallen out over this, but it's certainly divided. There's very much a divide between those like us who have I've tried taking warriors, as we talked about at tournaments, and didn't work for me. There's a divide between those taking warriors and those taking Lich Guard.
Yeah, and it's like this weird thing. So like it's a big divide, because it's either they are full on hearted, like, you need warriors, you need them, or then there's people like us who are like, nah, absolutely not. I mean, that's just the Necron legions as a whole, though, isn't it? We're always divided.
We're always fighting about something
in the law and in real life. So that just makes sense. We're fitting to the law, as we say.
But there's I still think this is one of the flagship changes that Stu Black and his team made.
Yes,
I still think the way they play tested it and expect it to play has a bigger impact than it is having at the moment.
Yeah,
I I think this change to the insane bravery stratagem is the first step in them seeing if they can nudge the player base towards making this more impactful.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to wait and see whether, if this isn't enough, it wouldn't surprise me if they have more options about how they can nudge us further towards making Battleshock more of a key mechanic in 10th.
Maybe stuff in their back pocket that they're waiting to release later on.
Yeah,
I think it'll be a really good shout. I think it'll be just good to see. I like the change to it. I think it was something that, although it hasn't impacted as much as we thought it was going to be, it's still a nice change. It's good to see new things come to Warhammer.
Yeah, I think compared to morale, I think this is definitely a step forward. I think morale impacted more some armies, more factions, more than others, like Orcs, as you mentioned before.
Yes.
Some of the other ones are lower morale, like, say, Gene Stealer cults, etc. So this is definitely feels like more of a level playing field, or a leveler playing field. But it needs a little bit more help for it to become as key to the game as they would like.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
So we're excited to announce that we've done our first prize giveaway, and we'd love you to enter it. There's 3 ways to enter. Just like this YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and tag 2 friends on the Instagram post. Very, very simple, straightforward. Everyone who enters goes into the prize draw, and the prize is to win a £100 Games Workshop voucher.
Which almost translated to about 2 paint pots, as someone mentioned on our Twitter account.
Someone on Instagram said, "Oh, what's that? 2 paint pots and half a paintbrush."
Exactly.
Like, how much do you want from me?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to give out so much, but anything to give back to the the small community that we are building. Yeah,
it's a lovely. Barring that comment, it's a lovely community on YouTube and on Instagram in particular, but across all platforms. We've been really blown away. So we wanted to give a little bit back to the community.
Absolutely.
So if you want to be in with a chance of winning that, then go for it, and best of luck.
I'll put the details in the chat as well, in the comments, and all the links that you need to. So yeah, get on it, and good luck. So Dan, unit review.
Yes, your turn this time. We did the Overlord last time, so tell us which unit have you picked.
I have picked the Convergence of Dominion. It's a Necron fortification that's in the latest codex, or the latest index, and it's basically a 101 guide on how to make a unit unplayable.
Oh dear, okay.
Games Workshop. I'm not too sure what it's like for other fortifications, so please leave a comment below if there's any other fortifications very similar to the one I'm about to talk about. But this one it's just awful. Absolutely awful. It's 255 points.
How much?
255, which is about roughly, I think, 50, 60 points away from a monolith.
It's most of a monolith, yeah.
It's most of a monolith, basically, and it does nothing. Nothing much. Well, sorry, it does something, but it's nothing worth mentioning.
For considering how many points it does very little. I think.
It's for, like, you think 250 points is going to be great, but it's not. Now, that's a massive increase from 9th edition, where it was roughly about 90 points for the fortification.
Yeah, by the end of 9th edition, it was very playable. It was coming in a lot of competitive lists.
It was, but now they've just completely ruined this unit.
So what does it do in what does it do in 10th? And
I'll start with the abilities, because effectively the shooting aspect of it isn't very good, and the movement and characteristics is 0. So, but we'll get into this on why. So the abilities, starting off with the reanimation nodes, is what it's called. Basically, it's a 6-inch aura to allow you to re-roll your reanimation rules.
Again, so and most of your reanimation is you're bringing D3 models back.
D3.
So at best it might help you get an extra model.
If that
and it's 6-inch auras pants.
Exactly. So I mean, you'll probably be rolling like a 2, and then if you re-roll it, you could go to a 1.
Yeah.
It's do you really want to run that risk to a lot of models? You probably don't.
It's not making. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is if you rolled. Yeah. It's not. It's just not good.
And the 6-inch aura is quite awful as well, simply because it's you have to deploy them in your deployment zone, and you can't move them. So why on earth are you going to be staying in your deployment? The only time it would actually be good is if you were to create some sort of semicircle around your backfield objective. So that you create like a bubble. But you can do that with a lot small, like Scarabs, for example. They're 40 points each, and you get 3 of them, and they're quite big bases, and you can space them 2 inches out. So two squads of those would do the exact same thing.
So you could spend less than 100 points and do the same as this does for 255. Right.
Exactly. There's another ability called Ancient Cover. It's a fancy word, right, for just getting rid of the word cover.
So they've just put an extra word in front of cover, but it's the same?
Exactly. So all this does is it gives you a +1 to your armor save, which is just benefits of light cover.
Wow.
That's all it is.
Wow.
So exactly, wow. It's literally just cover. That's all it is. Nothing more fancy to it. The other keyword is fortification. I think that's just in there because it is just a fortification. But what this one means is when engaged with another enemy unit, the enemy unit can, if that enemy unit has failed their battle shock, they can still just fall back and be fine.
Are you kidding?
Well, it's because it's a fortification.
So, because it can't.
It's not a great melee opportunist. And it also means that the enemy units. Sorry, if this enemy unit is in engagement range of this fortification, we can still shoot at that enemy.
Right.
But again, I mean,
it's very it's not very much, is it?
And it's a -1 to hit them as well.
Right. Which, okay.
Again, is just like, come on.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do for that?
It's not. You're not. Yeah, I can see why you were so disappointed in this.
Considering from where it was, like again, it was playable in 9th to a degree because it was actually really good to get like engage on all fronts. It's like toughness 11, so it is still quite hard to kind of chew through. And I think it's roughly about like 11, 12 wounds as well.
Wow,
so it's tough. But I mean, if you're on if I see that in my backfield, what's the point of shooting it? Doing nothing.
Yeah,
it's not going to do anything. Again, you obviously you can't even like claim teleport homers because you've got to be somewhere else. Engage on all fronts, you've got to be somewhere else. It just doesn't really make too much sense to have it there. So it's just not, basically it's just not worth bringing. Have you ever used it in your game? I know it's probably a silly question.
I don't even own one. I looked into getting one towards the end of 9th, and then it just kind of slipped off my priority list. I love the model itself. Like there's like 3 parts to it, isn't there? 3 models basically in a unit, but it looks really Necron. It
is. I'll put a picture on screen of what it actually looks like. But it comes in a squad of 3, but you can actually move, you can. And when you're deploying them, you can have them 12 inches away from each other, opposed to the 3.
Right.
But again, it's like it doesn't really impact too much of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to help. If it has to be in a deployment zone, then can't move. It's just too expensive.
Yeah, it's just honestly, my TED talk here. Don't take it. It's not good. It's not worth it. You can get cheaper points elsewhere for other units. But on the flip side, on what could make it better. Now, I've done a little diagram here. Not a diagram, but like a checklist of what would make this playable. Now, I've said let's reduce the points to 200. Now, you probably think, well, that's only a 55 point reduction in points, which isn't a lot in a lot of terms, but this is because of the stuff I want to add to it. So one of the ones I wanted to add to it is giving it deep strike.
Yeah.
Going back to the old Dawn of War style, when you used to like build those kind of what's the word? The buildings.
Yeah, you're constructing your Necron base and that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, in all the lore, these like pillars kind of, these black pillars kind of come out of the ground.
It's great.
It's good. So why can't something like that be done where like this deep strike thing comes out of the ground, like the tunneling horrors that we've got?
Yes.
In different areas of the board, that will allow you to then score them points, like engage on all fronts, behind enemy lines. And it just ties in well to get them around the board because they are tough. And if they're tough but scoring points, well, that would be worth bringing at the end of the day. Yeah,
because particularly one of the challenges sometimes is scoring those points with cheaper units is those cheaper units are vulnerable to things like Overwatch you talked about before.
Exactly.
Try and Overwatch something with like that many wounds and a high toughness. It's not going to.
What's the point? Yeah. There's no point. But obviously the whole point is, well, that's going to score my opponent points, but at the same time, it's too tough and too durable to get rid of.
Yeah.
So having it more up the board is better all round, opposed to it being useless at the back.
Yes, you need that mobility in this edition. 100%.
You do. Again, mobility is key in this edition. The next thing I think what would be a really good addition as well is a 12-inch anti-deep strike.
Brilliant.
So very similar to I forgot what the name is. It slipped my mind of the Space Marines one.
Is it one of the Scouts units or the Infiltrators, something like that?
Something like that. Yeah. But like basically, obviously an aura of 12 inches anti-deep strike. So that comboed with the deep strike capabilities that it has. Imagine if that got into an area and then zoned out that area, so you were protecting one area of the board or a couple of areas of the board. That's really good.
That'll be really powerful.
Or even defending your backline. Yeah. Because again, if you space it out, be like, all right, well now you can no longer deep strike into my backline unless you take out one of these pillars. It makes it more viable.
Yes.
You might think 9 to 12 inches, that's not a lot, but it's actually great. It's like a 6-inch if you line them up. It's a 6-inch extra gap between all of them now. Pushing them out even further is unreal. So having that capability, I think, would really change the way the game would flow.
In 10th, where there's a couple of secondaries where you have to either hold on to your objective or your opponent has to take it off you, your backfill objective, that would feel much stronger if you were able to zone out like that with something that was really tough and hard to shift.
Because they would have to target it, and then like you might be thinking, oh well, that still doesn't do much, but you have got to think about it. Like if that enemy unit wasn't targeting, that enemy unit would most likely target an infantry squad that you might need.
Yes.
So that player might be like, oh, actually, I need, like, there's an enemy unit that I need to kill. Oh, but I need my Terminators to get in turn 2 into that backline for them to charge. Well, actually, I'm now no longer going to charge that unit that you need. It's now going to target
it forces your opponent to reprioritize the
targets.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Although the points are still quite high at 200, it makes it valuable because you're forcing them to save. You might bring a squad of Lich Guard for 100 odd points, or you've just saved maybe 60 points of those Lich Guard from being killed because they're now targeting something else that they need to prioritize. Again, another good little change to it. Another one is the reanimation node. It's currently a 6-inch rower. Bump that up to a 12.
It needs to be 12.
Come on, like, I mean, literally, you're gonna, if you advance your warriors, you're gonna be outside the zone like, straight away. It just doesn't make sense, and it's just that it makes more sense for it to be 12 in combination with the deep strike, because then you could have it up the board, you move into that zone, and then you're safe, and you can do activities without having to worry about leaving that zone.
I really like that.
And the last one, this one was just kind of added in there because I think like that block bit of information I've just given you, I think would be decent enough as alone, but kind of keeping on theme with the title of this video and kind of the subject of battleshock. Basically have these pillars initiate battleshock on a unit within 12 inches.
Like it.
Yeah, just because again, if they're there's pillars on an objective, and obviously one enemy unit is also on it, or maybe close by. Again, just because they want battleshock to be a thing, give more units these abilities to do these kind of forceful battleshock tests.
You can incorporate into the game. I can see someone at GW saying, write that down.
Exactly, just send me a little bill. Oh, it's fine. A couple $100.
I think in terms of as an additional nice to have, or as another option for GW to help them make this unit viable and make battleshock more viable, that's a great idea. The other points that you've just raised there, that would then, if they added all those abilities in and that points drop, I would genuinely consider using that unit.
Because again, 200 points is still quite a large amount. But for what that brings with it, I think it would make it playable, and not to the point of being like, oh, they're too powerful to a degree that they're not. That in itself isn't killing a lot of units, but it's buffing and prioritizing fire elsewhere to save you more points.
And in the same way as I keep banging on about making melee great again, something like that would make fortifications usable again or good again. And at the moment, utility is a key word in 40k in terms of what you want out of units. And at the moment, not only is this too expensive, it's got no utility or very little utility.
Exactly.
What you've just described there would massively fix that.
Exactly. It just brings back the flavour, brings back the impactfulness of the game, and it can definitely sway how the game goes and proceeds. So I think it's a really good addition.
I'm sold. Next balanced data slate. Let's see those changes.
I want to see it in it. Get in the comments. Get Stu. What's it, Stu Fell?
Stu Black.
Stu Black even. Get him in the comments. Get him seeing it. That would be fantastic.
So this is a real oddball tournament in one respect.
We'll definitely get into that because it definitely is a strange one. But we're going to be attending a tournament next Sunday. It's one of the local tournaments hosted by Tin Soldiers in association with the West Allotment Wildlings group.
Yeah, Tin Soldiers is one of our friendly local gaming stores,
Yes.
And West Allotment Wildlings is one of our local clubs.
It is. And they're hosting a tournament. It's going to be a one-day event, and we're all going to be playing 3 games over the course of the day. As you just mentioned, it's a local tournament, and overall it's one of the best or fantastic ways to get into the tournament scene.
Well, this is how we got in, wasn't it? And we've this was our dipping our toe in the water. We both had a fantastic time. One of us nearly won it. I'm not going to name who it was. It was me.
Taking in the glory there.
But it was a brilliant. It was these are a great way to experiment with different lists, have a lot of fun, and they're a bit more casual and a lot more enjoyable, I think, or a lot more easygoing than a GT.
Exactly, because the GT aspect, you've got that the GT aspect of it lingering over you, where it's like, oh well, this goes towards points. People are there to win, yada yada. Whereas this one, it's a local event. It's people that if you've been attending this, this club, then it's people that you're going to be most likely familiar with. So progressing towards or away from a one-on-one game to a tournament scene with still the same group of people that you're used to, just helps you transition to a future GT that you might be a bit nervous to go to.
That's a really good point.
Exactly, and it's overall going to be a good experience now.
Because I think it's fair to say when we went to the first tournament that the Wildlings did, which was last year, and that was our first experience of a tournament.
It was,
and I think it's fair to say I certainly was feeling quite nervous and was undecided about whether I was going to go.
I was, me too. I'm glad I was going. I was glad I went with friends, but when I got there, I felt like, oh well, look, I didn't necessarily see everyone all day to a degree. So the games that I was playing, you go from one game straight into another. So I didn't see you for effectively like almost 6 hours. So although you think, I want to go with friends so that I feel like I'm together, I know what I'm doing, you actually didn't even see them for 6 hours.
Yes.
And just to add to that, you don't need to.
Yeah.
Like everything runs quite smoothly. The app is great to use. It makes sense. There's nothing thingy. All the tournaments that we've been to have been quite well run. Like the tables are all laid out for you. There's no confusing things. Everyone's really clear. The judges are always walking around, and everyone's really just quite approachable. Like I've not had an issue where I've been like, oh, what do I do? I've never been afraid to look at someone who's having fun and just be like, oh, excuse me, can I just ask you a very quick question?
Yes,
it's been very chill.
In that respect, I think the tournament scene is much more friendly and community focused than some people give it credit for. Because what tends to happen is there are some sweaty tryhards in the tournament scene, as there are with any competitive scene in any type of game.
It always is. Right?
From Magic the Gathering to video games and esports, etc. You're going to get it, right?
You are.
But those tales, the horror stories, are really rare occurrences. But those are the ones that get shared, and that builds up a negative impression.
It does. Before we dive into the meat and potatoes of that, what do you like most out of a tournament before we move on? Because I've mentioned about like getting there and trying stuff. I've got a few more things I want to talk about, but what do you like most? Yeah,
very much so. So the about these local tournaments, or RTTs as opposed to GT. So an RTT is the name comes the acronym is for Rogue Trader Tournament. Rogue Trader was what the first 40K was called.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So I thought it was something like regional tournament, something like that, but it's not. So an RTT is a friendly local tournament. They're usually one-day affairs. You usually play 3 games, and they don't affect. Usually, they don't affect your ITC points, which is your points you get for winning and losing games.
Yes.
In a tournament setting.
Yes.
So, the reason I like the Wildlings in particular is I do go to that club. It's really well run, and they've created a real culture of positivity at that club. So it's very inclusive. It's a nice place to play.
Good.
You never feel there's any bad vibes.
No.
So and while the tournament will attract people that don't go to the club also as well, but most of them will do, as you were saying. So for me, it's a nice sort of familiar and sort of
relaxing environment.
Semi-competitive, but it's not super competitive.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to taking my Drukhari out for a spin.
Yes, this will be fun to see.
Yeah, if I get them painted in time, I'm still right up against it. So, I've been enjoying playing Drukhari as my second faction for a little while now, and they're not particularly, they're not a super meta faction as we talked about earlier on, but I love them. So, and it's just a different experience. So this is an ideal opportunity to run them out in a bit more of a competitive environment and see how I feel about them really, and how much I enjoy them.
And I think that's a really good point though. Like, since this almost doesn't, I think not always. Again, we're mentioning it about the ITC rankings. Since this almost doesn't go towards it, I'll have to clarify that, because when I looked at it, I don't think it does go towards your rankings on it. Although it is recorded on BC.
It's recorded on the app, which Best Coast Pair is a BCP app, but it's there's only certain events that qualify for giving you points.
I might actually reach out to them and ask them, see if it will.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this one doesn't, but I think this is a good thing because then it doesn't attract the super competitive crowd.
Exactly, but it also still allows you to try out new armies that you are. You know, like you might not want to affect your score, but you still want to test your a new army out in a new environment.
Yeah.
So
I mean, my score is there's probably not much I can do to negatively impact it.
I know. It's like it can only go up.
Yeah,
right,
things can only get better. Yeah,
it's like unlike me, I need to stay.
You've got something to protect.
I've almost broke the 1,000 in the UK.
There you go.
We'll see. Yeah, but yes, I'm very much looking forward to that. And also, again, like we've got a few friends in the hobby, and a few of those friends haven't participated in any kind of tournament before because they have had that nervousness to it, or just not really feel like they've always felt like there's negativity around this tournament scene. And I think we've kind of broken down that barrier because we've been going. I think every time we've went to a tournament, we've brought an extra few people with us.
Yeah, that's a very good point, yeah.
This time, I think we've got about 8 of our friends going to this tournament.
I think there's 24 players, and we're like a third of them. So,
exactly.
It's going to be a bit of an invasion from our lot, but it's
fine, though, because like that's what we're there for. We're there to have fun, play some games, and again, this is like getting them into the tournament scene so that when we go to bigger events, like more GTs, we're going to bring a group of people down Manchester, up, down places, just go out and have fun. Enjoy it, because I think that's again the main thing of the hobby. We want to have fun,
absolutely,
and we want to play Warhammer. So combining them together is just a win-win.
That's massively, and I think I'm very excited to be. If it feels a bit weird to be like paying to go to a tournament when probability-wise the likelihood is at least a couple of us are going to end up playing each other. Like I could just go around the house, but it's part of the fun of playing in a different environment, different terrain setups, and all that kind of thing. So
well, that's it. Because we're so used to obviously our environments, being around a friend's house or anything like that. So going somewhere to play, it just has this different feel to it.
It's got a sense of occasion, hasn't it?
It is. And to touch on that, to go down to one of these little tournaments, it's really good to meet other people.
Yes.
Because if you're getting into the tournament scene, or even if you're just not too sure who you can play with, going to these local tournaments, well, it's a local tournament most likely for a reason. A lot of these people are from around the same area.
Yes.
So if you're unsure, or if you've got an army that you're not too sure kind of who to play, how to reach out to them, go to these tournaments and honestly just start talking to people. A lot of people are always up for playing Warhammer. That's why they're here. Yes. They want to play more. So 9 times out of 10, you'll get people like, I mean, if someone approaches and be like, oh, hey, I'm in the area, do you want a game of Warhammer? I would never say no to a game of Warhammer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely love it. So meeting these people and talking to these people, just get to know everyone, because you'll get yourself into the tournament scene. And again, even if you want to stay away from the main tournament scene, well, you've still met people in your area to still play more Warhammer with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the Wildlings chat, I had no idea that existed until you told me about it.
Yeah, they've got a fantastic Discord community, and it's really good. I mean, there are occasions when we have like differences of opinion or whatever, but it's always done in a respectful way.
Oh yeah, that's it.
But again, that's a tiny percentage of it, and it's usually me because that's causing an issue. But it's largely speaking, it's an incredibly positive community, and it has widened my friendship group for rolling dice with people. Met some really lovely people in that group.
Well, you bumped into Rob in the Warhammer shop.
Yes.
Which then, from that point, I was creating my own local tournament in just our house.
Yes.
And then from there, you came, and then from there, you invited the Wildlings people.
Yeah.
To obviously get to know all of us. And then from there, we went to their tournaments, and then GTs from there. So it's just a snowball effect.
Yeah, it has been. It's been a snowball of positivity in that respect. So it's been really good. So yeah, in terms of as well for one of the guys who I played in the first Wildlings tournament was a guard player. Back when guard weren't particularly good in 9th, and he had it was a difficult game for him because it was hard. Necrons were quite good at that time.
Yes.
We had a really good chat about it, and he was a student here. He'd moved up from down south, didn't know a lot of Warhammer players, and this was a way for him to get back into the hobby and find another community.
Exactly.
And then for those people that are coming back into the hobby, there's a lot of players who skipped a couple of editions, like 9th in particular. There was quite a few that dropped out. Some haven't even played 8th. If you're coming back into the hobby from there, as an older player, and you've lost some of your contacts, this is a great way to take that first step of finding a new community.
Just revive your love for the game, because obviously we've spoken about loads of times before, but we love the hobby. It's a great one. Lots of stuff to it, and again, the community itself is just beyond belief. They're so good.
And as I touched on before, we were both slightly apprehensive about tournaments, and we were like, we were absolutely.
Are they going to be sweaty?
Yeah, they're going to be. It's going to be full of sweaty tryhards.
Like rule book in one hand, dice in the other, kind of thing.
And it was the opposite. It was really friendly, and that's what I would say to anybody that's thinking about tournaments but has been a bit too afraid or a bit anxious about going. Is a local event like this Wildlings one is a perfect opportunity to start, and honestly, you will find that it is a much more positive experience.
Yeah, it really is, and across the board, like I think it's really good to maybe talk about what to expect from these kind of tournaments.
Yeah, brilliant idea.
We've touched on about how like everyone's so positive, and I can't agree more with what I'm saying. It's a hill that I'll die on, but everyone I've spoke to have always been nice. Judges, down from the judges, the organisers to the players themselves, everyone across the board has been fantastic. And the one or two things that we've kind of came across or clashed at, it's always been, I guess, negotiated in a very peaceful and easy going way.
Yeah.
So one experience thing that I want to talk about is I had someone disagree with a ruling that was going on, and basically put, it was just so simple. All I had to do was be like, okay, well, this is what I thought, this is what he thought, and there's two options you can go down. And this is really good to understand at a tournament scene, because this is what a lot of people might get put off when you disagree with someone. There's just two easy ways of doing it. One, you roll for it.
Yeah.
If you are happy enough to put it down to chance that if you're right or he's right, put it down to chance, roll the dice.
Yeah.
Simple as, whatever the ruling is, then go check it out later. If you really want to keep the game going, just roll for it.
That's great advice.
If you think this particular thing that's about to happen is a major thing in the game, and you really think you're right and they really think they're right, then just grab a judge.
Yeah.
Grab a player.
Yeah.
Next to you. Be like, look, is he your friend? If he says no, then because you obviously don't want to get your own friend. Be like, oh, hey Dan, aren't I right? Wink, wink. No, you don't obviously want that. But what you want is just grab a random player and be like, oh, what's your interpretation of this rule?
Yes.
If they're both happy, just get this person to not say what your opinion is or what their opinion is. Just ask, hey, you see this rule? You see these two units? What's your thoughts on this? Get their ideas. If you don't want to get another player, get a judge. It's what they're there for. Yeah,
that is exactly what they're there for. And 99 out of 100 players are there for genuinely reasons. Yeah. Horror stories you hear about people, these sharp practices, like we joked before about like weighted dice or moving an extra inch here and there or something. Exactly. Those things just don't usually happen. We're all at this kind of a level at a local tournament. Most people will be casual players like us.
Yeah.
Some of them will be experienced in the first tournament. There will be some people there that have built lists to go try and win it, but there will still be friendly people.
Again, the people I've played against who have really unique and good armies to properly kill you, they're still so fun. They're literally, they're honest. They're like, I built this list. It's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to kick your ass. But again, it's that little banter that they can do. And you might get the odd people who are a bit like, reclusive. They might not want to talk as much. That's fine. Everyone's different.
Yes.
They're there to have fun.
They're still there to roll dice and have fun.
Exactly. So although they might be acting differently to you, I think it's really good to remember they're still having fun, just they're in their own way. You do you let them do them, and just have a good game.
And in terms of, there's two, like the word experience can mean a couple of things, particularly to like players of fantasy role-playing games or whatever. So there's the positive and enjoyable emotional experience, but in terms of as a player, the experience you can get from tournaments is pretty good as well.
Oh, yeah. Experience themselves. You can learn so much from these people. Like, again, I mentioned it last time, but whenever I play like a really good player, I ask them questions. And like, that's not to try and like distract them or like slow down time. I'm there to learn. And like, if this player is really much better than me, hey, I'm going to ask them questions. Like, one thing I've done as well in the last tournament was I saw a Necron player. Obviously, as the tier goes on, you get assigned like tables based on where you are. So I think I was on like, out of like 99 tables, I think I was on like table like 56.
Right.
And I seen a Necron player on table like 20,
top tables,
27 or like in the top 10. I just went up to him and I was like, couple of questions. I was like, why have you got this list for? And he ran me through his list and his thought process, and I was like, you're a genius. I was like, that makes a perfect sense to what I need to do next time. And it's just, you get this knowledge that's collected, and you may as well ask them whilst you're there, because searching online, well, come on, we all know what it's like looking online.
Particularly like on the Necron groups, you can ask 2 Necron players and you'll get 3 different opinions back.
So, all negative.
So I think it's very important, and you shouldn't. I would fully agree with you. Don't be shy to say what at the end of a game or even during a game, should I have done something different?
Yeah.
And so, because sometimes you can see it in your opponent, like I move units and I can literally see my opponent almost hopping on with excitement because they know I've made a mistake.
Yeah, they'll smirk.
And I'm not saying I don't want to ask them to say so I can take that unit back, but just for next time, what would you have done different?
Exactly.
How should I have done that?
Make a mental note of it. Ask it at the end because again, some people might not want to talk about during the day during it because they might want to win and trying to have to their strategy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Asking at the end is probably the best thing because there's always plenty of time between the games to get that information. So I think it's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Another thing I think I wanted to mention was mistakes happen during games. You might make a mistake, the opponent might make a mistake. Don't take it personally. It's 9 times out of 10, it's probably a genuine mistake.
Oh yeah.
So if you notice it, you tell them. Be like, oh, did you actually know that that's changed now? It's actually this. Like this banned status slate that we've been discussing. We're about to go to this tournament. Guaranteed, someone's going to be running one of their rules wrong.
Yes.
Not intentionally. It's a
highly
hobby.
complex game, and as you said, the rules there's been some major changes to the rules, so people are going to get things wrong, and also there's some players who are just coming back or new to 40k.
Yeah.
It's our responsibility. I feel very strong about this as players to help them rather than try and catch them out.
Don't isolate them. Don't catch them out. Don't be like, oh, you should be better, kind of thing. It's education's key.
Yes.
Like let them know what they can do, even off the game. If you see someone struggling to kind of find where to go, what table to go to, how to use the app, give them a hand.
Yeah, totally.
When we were doing it on our end, we had signal issues with the app. So people, I was going around and someone was mentioning I'm struggling to get onto the app. I was like, do you want to just input your scores now?
The Northeast Open, it was a nightmare, wasn't it? Yeah.
So you basically at the end of every game you input your scores and each opponent has their own pin. So I was just going around making sure people had internet. So I think one opponent I hotspotted them. Just to get just to get them on the internet so they can submit the scores themselves. Good. Because no one wants to be panicking, no one wants to be rushing. You want to enjoy the day, get the games going smoothly. So just help everybody out, basically.
Yeah.
And I think another really good thing to mention is you're going to lose. That's it. You will lose your games.
Are you talking to me here or to everybody?
Primarily you. But yes, you will lose your games at the end of the day. Don't be disheartened. Learn from it. Still have fun, but don't go in there thinking, "Oh, I'm shit hot on my friend group. I'm gonna ace this." You're not. You might get destroyed, and that's fine. You're there to have fun. You will learn from it. I think me as a player, I think the first tournament we went to, I think I lost both my games, and I was like, "Oh, this." I wasn't downhearted, but I was like, "I've got so much more of that. I can do better next time."
It's an eye opener, isn't it?
I think my experience just shot right up from that point. It was.
You'll see a massive unless you are supremely already there's some people that just get the game and come into it and get it.
Exactly.
I'm not one of those people.
No, I mean I'm like a year in. I'm still I know how this rule now works.
Yeah, exactly. So there's for those of you, you will learn more from losing a game than you do from winning a lot of them.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And I think you need to go into that mentality of it's okay to lose. Don't let it sour your experience.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think another good thing to talk about is the difference between, we've touched on it before, but the difference between this tournament and a GT. So GT is a grand tournament, which is basically, I think, it's not hosted by GW, but it's supported in association or something like that, isn't it?
It's part of the. Effectively, it's part of the whole scoring system. So these are the events at which you can gain points for winning games, and that affects your ranking in the international and national
international tournament circuit. Is what ITC stands for. I had to look that up as well because I had no idea, and I thought it was just one of those ITC. But so there's a GT, which obviously you collect all your scores after this tournament and then send it to the ITC, which is the international tournament circuit.
Yes.
And basically, what we're playing is that it's kind of separate. This is more of a local chill tournament from what our understanding is, which basically opens the doors for you to have that chill atmosphere and bring an army that you might not be used to and not have to worry about any kind of consequences.
Yeah, I think there will be, some of the lists are already in. As we're recording this today is the cut-off day for the lists and the tournaments next week. So some of the lists are already in. You can see from some of them, you're like, crikey, this person's put together a good list here.
Yeah.
This is going to be, if I get drawn against them, I'm in trouble.
Yes.
But a tournament is there, at any level, a tournament is there to be won. But you, as players, we set our own goals for what we want to get out of that tournament, and that will massively impact your enjoyment of it.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal is not to win this tournament.
Yeah.
My goal is to learn how to play better with my Drukhari, which are my second faction.
Yes.
So I'm an even worse player with them than I am with my first faction.
Oh, no.
So it's about what we touched on again before. It's about both facets of experience. It's about learning to be a better player and learning how my army works, and also having loads of fun. So that's my expectations from this event.
Good. I think, I've only played one game with my list, which we'll go through in a second, because I've got a very fun list.
You have an awesome list,
to share with everyone. But the expectations from me is I think I'll do okay. Out of the 3 games, I think I'm going to win 1, maybe 2. That's kind of my expectations. I don't think I'll win it because my list can certainly be destroyed by a good chunk of maybe even the lower faction, the lower scoring ones out there, only because of how it's built and kind of what I can and can't do. So I think I'll do okay. Not win it, but I think I'll do 1 or 2 wins.
I would expect you to do well. You're a good player, and it's a very interesting list because as much as we might joke about it being a meme list, it against certain lists it will be very effective. I think it has the potential to do well.
Yes. So I think let's just talk about the list right now.
Yes,
rip the Band-Aid.
Yes.
So shall I start with mine?
We need to definitely start with yours. Yes.
I've been holding off on saying this one, but my list is a strange one. If any of the keen viewers out there have noticed, I've got my 3 monoliths stationed behind me. That's an indication. I'm bringing 3 monoliths to a 1,300 point tournament.
Yes.
That in itself is roughly about 900. No, it's about 1,100 odd points.
Yeah, it's most of you.
Yeah. So I don't have very much other than the 3 monoliths. But honestly, the reason why I'm bringing them forward is I feel like it's a perfect for these amount of points, 1,300. People don't expect you to bring big things.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, well, you need to score points, and you need to do this, you need to do that. They're right. They're 100% right. I was just like, you know what? I was like, it's not going to count towards my TC. I want to have fun. I've never thought about running a very silly list like this. The last few tournaments I went to, I brought one that I was going in to try and win a few games. So I was like, I want a bit of fun. I want a bit of relaxing. Yeah. So 3 monoliths are what's going to do it for me. I'm tying that up with 1 Royal Warden. The reason why I'm bringing a Royal Warden is because he was the cheapest HQ. He was 40 points, so I brought him. I've tied in as well 2 squads of Flayed Ones. They are there to purely score points. They have infiltrate, so they will be purely getting pushed up the board and hidden as best they can for as long as they can, just to score me those additional points. Whilst they're scoring the points, that's where the monoliths will hopefully shine. I'm hoping to be pushing these monoliths up to get as much shooting off as possible. I'll most likely field 2 of them on the table and have 1 in deep strike.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Just so that if I get turn 1, that's going to be ideal for me. If I get turn 1, that means I'm shooting 2 of them off the bat. Turn 2 comes, yes, I'll receive a little bit of fire, but I'm hopefully going to space them out and make them as awkward as possible so that whatever units they have, they can't take down a monolith.
Can't focus fire on it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll space them out as best I can. And then that means turn 2 comes around, deep strike, baby. Yes. That's coming in your back line, or because again,
which is a monolith in your backfield.
Backfield, because again, a 1,300 point list is still played on a normal size board.
Yeah, it's full size, isn't it?
It's full size. So 9th edition, there were smaller sizes for each different one.
It was half size for 1,000, for less than 2,000, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. But in this one, it's a full size board, which means there's more space for my monoliths to shine. Whereas when you have a 2,000 point list, where you have a lot of units to screen me out, and obviously in combination with the fortifications and terrain, it's quite hard to maneuver these monoliths. So my plan is to purely deep strike them in where there's going to be space, because there should be with this size list.
And this almost started out as like a meme, like within our friendship chats. You were like, well, I'm thinking about taking a monolith in my list, and somebody was like, well, why don't you take 2?
Yeah, and I was like, well, I'll take 3. Why stop there? Let's go for the full shebang. So I have sourced 3 monoliths. I had one when I was 15 years old. A friend donated one of them for the cause, and then I bought another one because no one else had another.
The one that you got when you were a teenager was the deal of the decade, wasn't it?
It was a fantastic
What did you
deal.
swap it for?
It was 5 or 6 jump pack Marines. I've got no idea. I don't know what his thought process was. At the time, I didn't even collect Necrons. I had Space Marines. I had a full squad. I had loads of armies of Space Marines. Yeah. And he just said, he goes, I'm never going to build that. He goes, it sucks. Like, it's too big. It's too massive. I'm not going to paint it. I'm not going to work it. He goes, I'll trade you for those. I think that was it. I had a squad of 10. jump pack Marines, and he goes, "Oh, I'll trade you for those." I don't know why, but I was like,
you chipped him down from 10 to 6.
I was like, I'll do
How dare you suggest full 10? Yeah.
I'll do your 7, and he goes, all right. And then now that I look back, I'm like, well, what was the point? I couldn't even field free.
Yeah.
There was no point.
It's the haggler instinct in you. Yeah, that's fantastic.
So I got a bargain on that one. So bargaining skills of me back when I was like 14, 15 years old are paying off now for future me.
I personally can't wait to see this on the table. You've had one practice game?
I had one practice game, and there was against Space Marines, and unfortunately, I'm sorry, Dan, if you are watching, I tabled them in turn 3.
Oof.
And it was just me gobbling up points from there. It was secondaries and the main primary points. And I only lost one squad of flayed ones and one Locust Destroyer, because I am bringing 2 separate Locust Destroyers purely for backline stuff, so they're going to be in strategic reserve. So when I get like stuff like behind enemy lines or engage on all fronts,
you just drop them in.
I'll just drop them in, basically, to try and get those extra points. And they're going to be ones like deploy teleport homers. They're not there to shoot. I'm actually going to keep them very safe, just like the flayed ones, because I need as many units as I can to be scoring those points.
Yeah, totally.
So they will be just purely a nuisance. I'm going to play them one of 2 ways: 1, to score points, or 2, place them in a way where their enemy unit has to come out of their cover to kill this unit.
Like the bait.
Exactly. But then my monolith is then going to be in line of sight to kill that unit. So if they do come out and want to shoot at it, well, the monolith's going to be there to pick up the pieces.
Nice.
And that's my goal. And again, the point ended. It was 89 or 90 points to 15.
Ooh.
I stopped him from moving up so much. I focused on purely reducing his capabilities of getting on points, because again, it's a full-size board. So getting around the board is really hard for this amount of squads. If you focus on one section of the board at a time, then they're going to have to divert their... Say they've got deep strike people. I focused on taking out a couple of squads around one objective, and then when he was coming into deep strike, I knew that he couldn't deep strike all of his deep strike units in other areas of the board, because he had to at least dedicate one to go back onto the objective.
Yes.
So already I'm taking away points for me to simply shoot at.
Yeah.
Because I've already captured 2 other points with my 2 other monoliths. So that's my plan. Basically, prioritize the objectives, killing, just to stop them from scoring them points, because if I don't cap them early doors, I think that's when they're going to run away with it, because I don't have a lot of models to do this with.
It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays into different lists. I think it's a fantastic it's going to be a fantastic list to take to a casual tournament like this, because everyone's going to be like, goodness me, what's he doing?
I'm either going to make some really good friends in this tournament, or I'm going to get kicked out by game 2.
Yeah. You're going to win, but they're going to tell you they've cancelled the prizes.
So Jack won, but unfortunately, due to his list, we're going to have to revoke what he's won. So that's my list, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I'll let everyone know how it went in the following episode that we do on this one. But Dan, I'm curious, what are you bringing with you?
So it's a bit of a letdown after that, to be honest. But it's I'm taking the Drakari because and I've hinted at this in the past, but one of the reasons I've been playing Drakari recently was that I haven't been enjoying Necrons as much as I did in 9th, because the Necron strategy is largely walk up to the middle board and then try not to die.
Yeah.
And I just... it was good fun to start with, but it's just getting a bit repetitive for me. So I thought, try different factions, see how it goes.
Yeah,
Drakari are almost the opposite of Necrons, very mobile but very squishy, really squishy. Like, I think the highest toughness in my unit in my army is 9, and that's one of the boats. They're not they do die very easily, but they're quite a lot of fun. They're quite versatile for point scoring. Yeah, so I'm taking a few units of Cabalite warriors, which are the standard battle line troops.
Right, nice.
Our special ability is that we can sticky objectives, and we can do it while we're in a transport as well. We don't have to get out of the transport.
You see, that's good, because again, that'll then knock me up a bit, because if you're on the objective and I shoot you off, in my head, oh well, great, that's now free, but no, I've now still got to move.
Yeah.
And again, the large size board with the less units that a lot of people will have based on the points, I think that's going to work to your favour.
Yeah, and I'm still finding my feet with them. So I had a unit of witches which are very much melee focused in a boat that you could deep strike in, with a leader called Lilith Hesperax, who's an absolute blender. She's really good at close combat.
Nice.
But they just weren't doing the business. And I looked at some of the math hammer, and they were only killing like even if they charged in, they were probably only killing 3 or 4 Marines.
I should really check out this math hammer. People keep mentioning it, and I never keep checking it out.
Yeah, there's a couple of places where you can like look online and crunch the they'll crunch the numbers for you. Or
I need to do that with my monolith slide, to be fair.
But yeah, so it's very much an experiment in terms of trying to find out what works for me. I've got a flyer in there, an aircraft, which is
a flyer.
Yeah, I'm bringing they're called the Void Raven bomber.
One word. Ew. Why? Why are you bringing a flyer?
I've played a few practice games and it's probably been my MVP. Be honest.
Really?
Yeah, it's because it's just got lots of guns.
I slated Fly the couple episodes ago.
I would fully agree with you, but I think because of where Drukhari are, like I think if we were a strong faction, people would probably be saying, well, the flyers are a bit pointless.
Yeah.
But because we're not doing very well and the flyer is okay, it's like, it looks quite good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far I was tempted to bring I'll be honest, I've got 2. I was tempted to bring 2, but I'm just going to stick to 1 for the tournament. So it's nothing as memey as what you're doing or as exciting.
I think I forgot to change the name of my list, actually.
Did you?
I think I've uploaded a called West Allotments meme. Might need to change that. Thanks for reminding me. But that fly is really surprised me. I didn't think you were going to bring fly.
Yeah, it's as I said, it literally won me a game against Tau in almost the last roll of the dice by eliminating someone off an objective. It's got they're not a great hasn't got a great anti-tank, but it's very good at killing infantry and elite infantry.
Okay, right.
So, it's got some play, definitely.
Nice.
It has a special ability where once per game it can fly, after it's flown over enemy units, it can, on a 4-up, it causes D6 mortal wounds to each of those.
Nice. It's like that spore thing that the Tyranids one has as well. That's nice.
So, it does have that. In this kind of size game, of 1,300 points would be less useful than perhaps it would be at 2,000, but, Yeah, it's a different army for me to play. It's a very different play style, so I've had mixed results. I've won a couple, lost a couple.
Yeah.
So if that pans out at the tournament, if I can win one game with that and learn more about how to play that army, I'll be over the moon.
Good. Very nice. Very nice. Well, I think we're both looking forward to the tournament then, aren't we?
Yeah, it's the Wildlings events are always good. Nice crowd of people, and if out of 8 of us, you'd like to think one of us would get a podium place.
Yeah. Easily. Again, there's like a third of us going, if not more.
Yeah.
So
we're a third of the list. If none of us get a podium place, something's gone wrong.
Something's gone wrong. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for seeing 2 in the day. Anything else that you want to add to this, Dan?
No, I've enjoyed today's episode. Just want to say thank you to everyone in the community that's been leaving loads of positive comments. Even you, Mr. Two Paint Pots guy, at least you took the time to comment.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, and we've had some lovely feedback from some other content creators as well. It's been awesome.
We have. So again, don't forget, we've got the giveaway going on at the moment.
Yeah.
All the details will be in the comments below, so please check that out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.